My name is Joseph Gutovitz. I was born May 18, 1918. We were born in a small town in Poland. Białobrzegi is the name of the town. And I was born actually in Warka, but when I was a baby, we moved to Białobrzegi. I don't remember those times. Anyway, I remember the times we lived in Białobrzegi. I went to school at 7 grades, education. My dad was a cobbler. I had 6 brothers and a sister. The oldest one was Sam. The second brother was Abe. The third brother was Israel. And my youngest and after then I was born, Joseph. There was 2 youngest, which were twins, Benjamin and Esther. And then after high school, we moved to the little small town, not high school, grade school. We moved to the small town, Białobrzegi. That was in a village we used to live. That village was Białków. The name of it was Białków. And my dad had a little orchard there. So we all kids, grandkids used to go there and some of them get some fruit, cherries, pears, prunes, and plums, and all those kind of fruits. And I used to, go up in the tree and try to get them down the bushels. Then we moved to Białobrzegi. In Poland, you could only be a tailor, a shoemaker, one of these little professions. And I didn't want to be a shoemaker because I saw my dad working so hard, being up from 6 o'clock in the morning till 12 o'clock midnight, making shoes from stretch. And I didn't want to be a shoemaker. After school, I was 12 or 11 years old. I wanted to be a barber. And I went to college. I took a barber college, took about 4 years, study books, but hygiene and sanitation and all that. I became a barber. I had a licensed barber when I was about 17 years old. Then at the time, that was in 39, 37, I started working in a barbershop. Opened a barbershop, and I had 2 people working with me, apprentices. My dad worked awfully hard. And, I tried to help him, when I would get an extra, I went to the barbershop, I had some tips and stuff like that. I tried to accumulate or save it and give it to him if he needed, And he was a gracious man. My mom, we used to sit and eat dinner at home. I don't remember a time, 5 in the afternoon, when we sat down to eat dinner, that some beggars did knock on the door. There was a lot of beggars, a lot of poor people. They go for a penny or for a nickel or for a dime, whatever you could help. But my mom couldn't take it. She opened up the door, got up her seat, and gave her meal to the beggar. I never seen her eat a meal together with the family. She was so good-hearted. I got to be about 14, 15 years old. And I worked already in the barbershop. And when I was home, I started dating by 15. Dating, kids laugh, go out with a girl here and there. My dad didn't like it because I woke him at 12 o'clock coming home or 1 o'clock. So he started arguing not to come home that late. He works out, they're coming back home. I got tired of listening that, and all that story. One morning I picked up. My mom knew it. She didn't want me let go. But I picked up my few things and I said goodbye, and that was an automobile, and I went to Warsaw. I went to Warsaw. I knew some people there that I knew, and I checked in with a friend of mine. Next day I went out to look for a job. I found a beautiful job as a barber, and I made a good living. Those days, a good living I made 20 zloty, 30 zloty was a good living, plus tips. I could rent myself an apartment. I could rent myself, buy little gifts. I always dreamed to go home to bring for my nephew some gift. My mom, I wanted to buy a gift, so I always saved something. I used to go twice a year home, and I lived in Warsaw. In the meantime, I met in home, was coming a girl. She was going to gymnasium. And I met her, and she fell in love with me, and I fell in love with her. I was 16, 17 years old. She had an uncle in my town, Białbrzegi. And finally, she found me a place in her building that I rented. And we got engaged. I was about 17, 18 years old. And during the war, you know, I was too young and I didn't think of getting married. But she was in the Warsaw Ghetto, closed up in Warsaw Ghetto. In the ghetto, you could not find any bread. You could not find any people was gone alive, starvation. You see, 1 week from another, people found, people laying on the street, people begging for no food. Hitler got closed up the whole Warsaw Ghetto for Jews. Only Jews were there. Polish people couldn't enter this place, otherwise they could get shot too. After the Warsaw Ghetto started building, and we heard that the Germans going start shooting up the ghetto. And 2 weeks later, they start shooting up ghetto. I escaped at night time to Poland, to the town where my dad lived in Białbrzegi. And I left my wife there. We got married, and she went with the parents to Auschwitz, to Treblinka, the gas chamber.
How did you escape from Warsaw?
I escaped during the night. It was 70 kilometers. Night time, I lay in the forest, find a grape or a grape juice or whatever, or a potato. I eat it without cooking that night. And just walked at night time till I arrived to my little town where my parents lived. That's how I arrived in Warsaw Ghetto.
Were they gone by that time?
No, parents were still in Białbrzegi. Yeah. Then they made a ghetto in Białbrzegi. And from there, they took him out. They gathered from all small little towns, the Jews left in villages, in small towns. They gathered in that little town. And when the ghetto was closed, they started liquidating them. I was in Białbrzegi, then I started barbering again. I had a friend of mine, a Polish good friend of mine. He said, Joe, why don't you go out and work for me? He started to be a policeman. And he said, you run the shop. You're a good friend of mine. I know you was apprenticed for me. You know, he was an older gentleman. And I went to work for him. So I had paper that I could go out from the ghetto and work in that Polish neighborhood. And the Germans used to come in to get a haircut for me. There was one mean gendarme. His name was Felsgraf. I even remember his name, Felsgraf. He came over and laid down the gun on the table. He said, you there, you Jew, if you give me a haircut, I'll let you give me a haircut and a shave. But if you give me one scratch with a razor blade, see this gun, you'll be dead. So you can imagine the stuff shaving in my hands for going like that. I was 17 years, maybe 18 years at that time, 17 and a half years. Time came, they came to Białbrzegi in 1942. It was by full time, not by September or November. And one night they came along and said, Aussiedlung, you know, every Jew have to go be on the street. Whatever he can take, possession, his shirt or go, leave everything at home. They start all the Jews in one place. They found in the place, like 60, 50 years old, they shot him right on spot. They shot him. They didn't let him go any farther. Why they do that? To liquidate Judaism from the whole area. They took him to Treblinka, and we didn't know at that time. Later on, we found they geshampered them all. I was left as a barber to serve the Germans. My brother was left as a shoemaker, as a cobbler. Now the third brother was left. We both fought for the Germans. We shaved them, cut their hair, and all that. Because there was no Polish barbers there. There was no Poles. There were barbers at that time. And we worked. She let us live and work there. They left a tailor, a shoemaker, and a barber, and a couple shoemaker, and a couple tailors. That's all. But 10 of us altogether. They gave us a room, a special room to live in. We lived in fear, day in and day, because one day we found out they found in the forest a couple our friends, and they shot him. Next day we found out the same thing. The next day, so we thought our ends were coming too. All of a sudden, about a year later, come order that they have liquidated all the Jews, what are left, the few Jews we left in Białobrzegi, and to take him to. So at that time, they took me and my brothers, a big bus, to Skarżysko, Kamienna. That was ammunition plant, which the Polacks made ammunition, bullets, bombs, and all that nature.
When you got on the bus to go to the camp, what was that like?
Horrible. We didn't know where we were going. We don't know if we're going to survival. We don't know if they're taking us to death. We went 3 brothers to Skarżysko from Białobrzegi. Two barbers, me and another brother, and the shoemaker. And we walked, and then all of a sudden, big, tall German, you know, Talbot was his name, tall German, come over to me. He said, "You right, you 2 brothers left." I didn't know what that, you know, what that means, you know. Rechts and links, you know, left and right. I didn't know what, I said, "Herr Talbot." I went up and stood up like that to the big German, and I said, "Herr Talbot, you can't separate us. We were 6 brothers and a sister. I've got nobody left, there's 2 brothers. If you take me together with them, wherever they go, to death or alive." He looked at me, the German looked at me like that. "Where's your brothers? Show me your brothers." So I pointed out, I said, "This is my brother, this is my brother." He took both brothers, and he said, "They're going to stay with you." He took my wish, and he was apparently a good German. And he said, "I'm going to give you wish that you're going to stay with you." The other side, if they took him, would be a Werk C, you know, what the C, ABC. Werk C was a camp where you worked the poison for the bombs, yellow poison, you know. If you worked there 4 weeks, you had to die, because your lungs got yellow. In that, you couldn't live longer than 4 weeks. So I saved right there. I didn't know at that time. I saved their life right there, you know. So in concentration camp in Skarżysko, you want to know about Skarżysko, I worked 12-hour shift. Then I got a whole mine leader was a German, from Germany. But anyway, that German used to bring you a piece of cigarette, a piece of salami. Anyway, in concentration camp, I got the first man sick, I had typhus fever. I didn't tell you the story yet before then. I'm telling you. When we come to Skarżysko, I had a pair of boots on me. And I wear the 5.5 number shoe, which for a very small foot, you know. Very small size. I was 18 years old. And when my brother was a shoe cobbler, my dad and mom gave me jewels. My mom's jewel, diamond earrings. She had a chain around the neck with a golden watch. And when they parted it, they said, Joseph, hold it, maybe that save your life. I had a little sack like that with jewels, with gold, with everything. So my brother went and put it in my heel, both my heels. They dig the hole and put both my feet, the jewels and the rings in the pearl. We went to the camp. Everybody had to get undressed. I dressed my shoes. I said, there's my jewels going. Can't save it, you know. Every German wanted to put on that shoe, nobody could fit. It was a small number. So toast it to the floor. Don't have better, we can't wear that shoe. And they gave it back to me. Another German came. My brother made those shoes, you know. I put back the shoes on. They were the jewels. When I got sick from typhus fever, you know, you have high fever. There was no medication. No doctors. If you couldn't survive, you just lay in barrack, they come out and take you out and shoot you. If you couldn't produce, they take you out and shoot you, middle of the field or whatever, you know. So I was going to work. Sickness, and my feet were waggling, and I was falling asleep on the machine, you know, making some special things for the bullets. And that German, you know, that time, he said, what's the matter, Joseph? You don't feel good. I said, no, I'm sick. He get me a little water on the side. Nobody saw it. He brought me a little water. I had fever, probably about 107, 8, who knows. And I survived. And my brother took out a jewel and sold the Germans for a couple loaves of bread, and we had bread. Then we bought some rice. You cooked in home after you got home a meal on wood, you know, outside. Then, you know, this is a sickness that you can get it from, you know. My brother slept with me, all three of us got sick with typhus fever. So one brother was so sick, and one time we left him in the barracks. Me and my brother said, they're going to kill him today. We left him back, we forgot to take him with him, you know. So we both went with the workshops. We said we forgot something in the workshops. That Meister, mine overman, said, take him, they left something. We went to save our brother. Because there was already a machine with machine guns take out my brother to shoot. There's about 5 dozen of them laying in bed from typhus fever, and they have no medication or nothing to shoot. And we went up, and we took off I went up in the truck and threw my brother off, and we had him behind the truck. My brother was you know, dragging him out, and that's how we saved our brother. That's how I come out alive. Anyway, life went on. They took us, the Germans start marching forward when they start liberating, defeating Germany. I mean, the Russians start marching forward when they start liberating Germany, defeating Germany. So they moved us from Skaržisko to Częstochowa. It was about 500 miles. Another camp for that truck. But we knew of then where we going, because the same fabric, the same ammunition plant was in Częstochowa. We had to work there, and I know the machines already, how to work on them.
What was it like in that camp?
In the camp, horror. You see, you stepped over dead people day in and day out. You didn't want to live. There was electrocuted wires. So I went on, hundreds of people went on everything. Just touch it, you're dead. Every time I went on, like inside of me, my mom would push me, don't do it, Joseph, you're going to live it through. You're going to live it through. And I backed off. Every time I went on to it, I backed off. And didn't commit suicide. The strength of life was still there. It was young. I seen a dog. The Germans were the dogs. I said, I wish I would be a dog. I have liberty, you know. Think of it, you know. There was no soap, there was no water, there was no bed, lice, And that's why you got the typhus fevers. You live in horrible condition now. You lived it through. It's Mark. You can't understand how you've lived. The Russians started arriving. That was 18th of January 45. My brothers, they took both to Buchenwald to Germany. I didn't know at that time. I was safe because I had night shift. They had day shift. They took him away. I had night shift. I was left. I come out next morning up. Where's my brothers? I'm left alone, so I got to be very disappointed, very, very distressed. And I said, it's no use to live because I'm not going to survive myself neither. Anyway, the Russians came.
Can you remember what it was like when the Russians came?
No good. I didn't like him. They said to me like that. I went Finchensdagar to Radom. On the train, when I left, I was in the clothes from a concentration camp, like a prisoner, you know. So they said, you there? You know that I'm a Jew. I said, yeah. You was in concentration camp? Yeah. No good. You there, no good. German, I said, this is mine, liberators.
When the Russians came into the camp, what was the, what happened after, how did you leave that camp after they came?
Well, I escaped. They came in to my little town where I was in Białbrzegi, looking, trying to find some brothers. We had a dream that maybe our brothers were. Matter of fact, I found my wife. She was a cousin of mine there in that little town. And I found another cousin there, but no brothers and sisters.
So you went from the camp back to your hometown.
Right,
You
right.
walked back.
No. I went with, there was no buses, no communication. Trains for animals, like for wear, you know, like for things to wear, you know, like transportation. No passenger transportation right in the war. So I went up on that and went to the town. And that's where we found those Russians. Dragging me around, you know, and saying what's good or what's bad.
Did the Russians at the munitions plant, after they liberated that plant,
They did nothing with it.
did they turn you loose?
They turned me loose. They took all the equipment into Russia with Poland. All the equipment. All the ammunition plants they took to Russia. They took away from Poland everything they could. They robbed them, they took him to their country, to Russia. With buses, with trains, you know, whatever you had. And then we were freed. Do what you please, you know. But how did I remember mine? Because I knew I had two brothers in Buchenwald. I had a letter in middle May that the two brothers living in Buchenwald, they survived, Abe and Israel. That was through the Red Cross. So I know down Buchenwald, so me and my present wife went to Buchenwald. We came to Buchenwald, some people told us they went to our town looking for me. They heard that I was alive. That's why I went there to Germany, and they went there. We got together. We got together in Landsberg am Lech in Germany after the war.
Is that a DP?
DP camp. A DP camp. Yeah, it was about 5,000 Jews, and I was a policeman there. You know, for DP police, you know. But no guns, no nothing. Just in Germany. That was West Germany. West Germany.
How long were you there?
I was in West Germany 3 years, waiting for the visa to come to the United States. An uncle here is trying to bring me up. How did it happen? It was one time a man, right when we arrived in Landsberg, was a man displaying shoes, new shoes, for us people from concentration camp. So I looked him up and I talked to him, and I said to him in German, he spoke good German. I said, where are you from? You an American? I said. He said, yes. I said, where you from? He said, I'm from Kansas City. I said, I have an uncle in Kansas City. He said, tell me his name. I told him, Abe Gutovitz. He's got a furniture store on Truman Road. There's the name of the road, of the street. I said, I know him personally, I know his kids. And that's how I got communication with my uncle, that we, all three brothers, got liberated.
Were you at the camp for those 3 years, all 3 years?
Yeah, in DP camp. DP camp. There wasn't a camp, it was freedom. You know, it wasn't under Germany or under gun or anything. Under rule, living. You got so much to live on. They paid you so much, like, to get by. Then I was policeman, so I get some extra food, extra cigarettes. 3 years.
Now, where did you go when you left Landsberg?
And when we left Landsberg, we wait 4 years to get our visa to come to this country, to this beloved country. And we kiss the ground in America even today. It's a beautiful country.